It happened just moments ago, and Nigerians everywhere are talking about it. The courtroom was tense, cameras outside flashing, lawyers moving quickly, and the sound of voices echoing through the Federal High Court in Abuja. Everyone wanted to know one thing: what is happening with Nnamdi Kanu's case? And today, what came out of that courtroom really caught attention across the country. The judge has now fixed November 20th, 2025, as the day judgment will be delivered in Nnamdi Kanu's terrorism trial. This decision came after a long series of hearings that have stretched for years, and today's sitting brought a clear turning point. During the session, something quite serious unfolded. The court noted that Kanu had not opened his formal defense within the time that had been given to him. The judge said, in simple terms, that the opportunity for him to present his defense had expired, and that by not using it, he was considered to have waived that right. That single statement changed the whole atmosphere in the courtroom. Everyone knew that the next move would be judgment, and it has now been scheduled. Now, my people, as you're listening, please remember to like this video and subscribe, because this is where you'll get every update calmly and clearly as events unfold. We don't do rumors here. We explain what truly happened so that you understand. Back to what went down. When the court made that statement, you could feel the weight in the air. Mr. Kanu, wearing his usual white outfit, remained seated quietly while his lawyers spoke with the judge. They asked the court for a short stand down so that Kanu could file an affidavit, a legal document he said he wanted to swear to and submit. The judge agreed, showing that the court was still giving him every chance to complete any legal steps he wished. After that brief pause, the case resumed, and the judge confirmed the final adjournment for judgment. The date was written clearly, November 20th. From that point, the story traveled fast across social media. Headlines began to roll out: court fixes judgment date in Nnamdi Kanu trial, Kanu waives defense, and so on. People outside the court started reacting immediately, some relieved that the long wait might finally end, others anxious about what the judgment might mean. Now, for those who may not have followed the matter closely, here's a little reminder of the background, but I'll keep it simple. Nnamdi Kanu is the leader of the Indigenous People of Biafra, often called IPOB. The group has been proscribed by the Nigerian government. Kanu has been facing several charges related to terrorism and incitement. He was first arrested years ago, granted bail at one point, left the country, and was later brought back to Nigeria from Kenya in 2021. Since then, the court process has continued. The case itself has gone through many stages: arguments about jurisdiction, about his arrest, about whether the charges are valid under the Constitution. It has been one of the most discussed legal cases in Nigeria for years. Today's event therefore means something major. When a court says a defendant has waived the right to present a defense, it simply means the court will now decide based only on the evidence that the prosecution already presented. In criminal law, that's a serious point because the judge will be relying solely on what the government's lawyers have brought before the court. No more witnesses, no more cross-examination from the defense. The judge will look at the case file, the testimonies, and the legal arguments, and then write a judgment. That's why today's development is so important. It's like the last step before the final decision. Now, as I always tell my viewers, please like this video and subscribe so that you don't miss the next part of the story when the judgment comes out. Because this one, the result on November 20, will shake public conversation again, no doubt. Let's look a bit deeper into what happened in that courtroom today. The prosecutor, representing the federal government, had earlier closed his case after calling several witnesses. These witnesses gave their statements and evidence about different allegations, broadcast statements, alleged incitement, and other points that the prosecution said were offenses under Nigerian law. After they finished, the court invited the defense to open their case. The defense had been granted some adjournments to prepare. However, according to the court record, Kanu maintained that he would not open a conventional defense because, in his view, there was no valid charge to defend. It's a legal strategy, one that his lawyers have been consistent about for a while. They have argued repeatedly that the charges themselves are defective, meaning they say the law does not actually support the kind of charge that was filed. Because of that, Kanu's team decided not to call any witnesses or present new evidence. Instead, they focused on their legal objections. The judge listened to these arguments across several sittings. Finally, today, the judge ruled that since the defendant chose not to present a defense, and since time had passed, the court was now closing that stage and moving to judgment. To make this clearer, in criminal trials, there are basically two sides, the prosecution and the defense. Each side has the right to call witnesses and present evidence. But if the defense says, we will not call anyone, the court cannot force them. The court simply moves ahead based on what is already before it. So that's what happened today. It might sound technical, but in plain English, it means the case is now ready for the judge to give a decision. Outside the courtroom, reporters rushed to send updates. Some of them spoke to lawyers who confirmed the development. Others tried to speak to supporters who had gathered outside. There was a heavy security presence, as usual for Kanu's case, but everything remained calm. People are reacting online already. Supporters of Kanu are saying they hope the court will look at the facts carefully and deliver justice. Others are saying this is the chance to finally close a long chapter. Whichever side you fall on, one thing is clear. Nigerians are waiting eagerly to hear what happens on November 20th. Now, let's take a moment to understand why this case carries so much national attention. It's not just about one man. It's about what he represents, what the government's case represents, and what it says about how our laws handle sensitive issues like security, expression, and unity. Some people see Kanu as a symbol of free speech. Others see him as someone whose actions created tension. The court's decision will therefore be interpreted in many ways, politically, legally, and socially. At this point, please take a second to click that like button and subscribe so that as soon as the court sits again, you'll be among the first to get the clear, verified update from me. Now, one of the interesting parts about today's proceedings was the way the judge managed the courtroom. Despite all the public interest, the judge kept everything professional, allowing both sides to make their final statements. The atmosphere was controlled. No chaos, no shouting. Lawyers were respectful, and the judge maintained order. That's something Nigerians should appreciate because it shows that even in high-pressure cases, our courts can still function in an orderly way. Another thing that happened today, after the judge fixed the date for judgment, there was a gentle reminder from the court that everyone should maintain peace. That means no protests, no intimidation, no online abuse of anyone. The court will deliver its judgment, and the law will take its course. It was a strong message said in a calm tone, but clearly meant to remind people to respect the rule of law. Now let's look at what might happen next. If the court on November 20th rules in favor of the prosecution, then the government's case will have been upheld. In that case, there would likely be an appeal from Kanu's lawyers. Because every defendant has the right to appeal a judgment they disagree with. That could take the matter to the Court of Appeal and possibly even to the Supreme Court later. If the court, on the other hand, rules in favor of Kanu, for example, if the court finds that the charges were not properly proven, then he would be released from that particular case unless there are other pending matters. That outcome too could bring appeals from the government's side. So, no matter which way it goes, there will likely be more legal steps after November 20. That's why I always remind my viewers, don't rush to conclusions based on what people say online. The real story is told through the official court records, and that's what we follow here. Now let's talk about public reaction a bit more. In previous hearings, supporters of Kanu have sometimes gathered outside the court, waving flags or chanting. Today, though, things were calmer. Many of them were simply waiting to hear the outcome. Security agents kept the environment peaceful. On social media, you can already see hashtags trending, people calling for justice, others talking about peace, and many simply sharing links to news articles. The key thing for everyone now is patience. The judgment day is set. The legal process is working. I'll pause for a second and remind you again. Please like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Your support helps this platform grow, and it ensures that credible, respectful news continues to reach more people. Now, beyond Kanu's personal case, this event also raises a bigger question about Nigeria's justice system. Many Nigerians complain the trials take too long, that cases drag for years. This case has been going on since 2021 with multiple adjournments and applications. The judge's decision today shows that courts are trying to move things forward to bring closure. It's an example of how legal systems work. Slow sometimes, but careful. Another interesting observation is how Kanu himself behaved in court. Observers said he was calm, occasionally speaking quietly with his lawyers, showing no sign of agitation. That calmness might be part of his legal strategy, showing confidence that the law will eventually vindicate him. His legal team, on their part, have continued to insist that their client deserves fair treatment under the law and that the conditions of his detention should be improved. They have filed several motions about his health and about access to his lawyers. Those matters are separate but related to the main case. As Nigerians, we can all learn something here. Legal battles are not settled by emotions. They are settled by facts, evidence, and interpretation of law. And that's why it's important that we allow the judiciary to do its work independently. Now imagine the atmosphere that day, November 20th. Reporters lining up early in the morning, supporters standing outside the courthouse, police controlling movement, and every media outlet waiting for the final word. Whatever the judgment is, it will make headlines around the world. Please, if you're still with me, don't forget again, like this video and subscribe. It helps the message go further and it supports independent, balanced storytelling.